So today, my sister makes 5 years since she passed away. She passed away today, 2021, when she was 42 years old. And I wanted to make a video because the relationship between me and my sister is interesting, and I'm hoping that maybe this life lesson can teach you a little bit something. So, growing up, my sister pretty much took care of us. She was the oldest, so she was responsible for me and my brother. Um, so she bared a lot of responsibilities because my mom worked in New York and my dad worked at night. So he would be gone from like 3 to 11, and then my mom would get home like around 6 or 7. So she bared a lot of responsibility. I looked up to my sister 1000%. Me and her, were very close when I was younger because I literally did everything with her. And when I say everything, I did everything. I was those little kids at the after school parties, or I would hang out with her friends. So I was always in the mix some way, somehow. And I feel like as we got older, we continued that relationship. Even after she left the house, I would always want to go to New York during my breaks from school because I just wanted to spend time with her and be with her because I missed her. Um, and once she started getting into a relationship with a guy that wasn't really that great, but she loved him, she appreciated him and everything that he did. I feel like he put a lot of things in her head that really changed the dynamic of our relationship. She ended up having two beautiful kids, and I love them to death overall, but I feel like her having those two kids back to back and being in that toxic relationship really triggered something in her mind. On top of the other, childhood traumas that she had, we assumed that she ended up becoming bipolar because she would accuse me of things, of taking things, of stealing things, and and it made me feel worried, or I would tell her, "You're crazy. Why would I steal from you? I didn't do that." But she was so adamant about it and she believed it to the core that nobody could tell her differently. So while she was going through, those mental issues, it really did a number to our relationship. But I didn't know that at the time because I couldn't put a name to it. And, a lot of the times, people would just brush it off. Oh, it's nothing. She'll get over it. Sure. And at the same time, she didn't think anything was wrong with her. So she didn't feel like she needed the help. So because of the tension that we ended up having, and because, I was able to go out, I was in college, I was going to parties, I was doing the things that she wanted to do when she was younger, but she wasn't really able to. So I feel like she bared a lot of resentment. It was just overwhelming for me because at the end of the day, I was trying to do my best to help her in the circumstances that she was in, but I was only a kid myself, so for me to bear any type of responsibility for an adult, it was crazy to me. And I always felt like I had to be the mature one, or I had to be the responsible one when she was the older sister or the older sibling. So at one point, I just said, you know what, I'm not doing this no more. I'm not going back and apologizing because I didn't do anything wrong. And that led essentially us to not even speaking for 10 years. She was so mad. She was just like, you know what, if you don't want to talk to me, I'm not talking to you. And that ended up shooting me in the foot ultimately, because once I had my daughter and once I wanted, to try to communicate with her, she didn't want to communicate with me anymore. And at certain points in time, she no longer let me see my niece and my nephews anymore. So I was gone for a majority of their childhood. My brother was the middleman, so whatever he could do, he did for those kids. At the end of the day, he realized that my sister wasn't in the best efforts, and they did have a closer relationship, so it was easier for him to be able to be in that space for those kids while she was going through all these issues. I am grateful to say that the last 2 years while she was on earth, we were able to reconnect and build our relationship. And, we ended up saying agree to disagree. At the end of the day, I love you. You're my sister. I've always looked up to you. I've always wanted a relationship with you. So that I say to say that if you have family members, even sisters that are difficult, that are hard, and you're not understanding why, try your best to be to be in their space. Try your best to continue to be connected with them in some form or fashion. Even if you have to take breaks, even if you have to set boundaries, that is okay. And I regret that day that I decided that I wasn't going to be the bigger person anymore, because that hindered me for being with her and possibly even getting her the help that she needed to be able to recover for 10 years. And I don't want anybody else to waste precious time that you have with your loved ones, because you truly never know.